The New World is one of my favorite locations in the game, and with one DLC that came out, it actually really changed the whole way that you're supposed to play in the New World, in my opinion. And I do want to talk about that because I did mention that I would recommend to you guys certain DLCs that are worth investing into. This is definitely one of them, in my opinion. So today we're going to be talking about it, and I hope you guys are ready for today's guide and are having a great day on your end. Let's get on with it. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Anno 1800 Beginner's Guide series. Hope you all are doing well. Today, I want to talk about Haciendas. Haciendas are a very interesting DLC that was added to Anno 1800 with the Seeds of Change DLC. And essentially what it provides is a whole different way to navigate the farming chains along with some population, should you choose to go that way, along with an additional resource to tap into. So let's talk about it. Going over to here to the Obreras, because that's where you're going to initially find it, is this icon right over here, being the Hacienda itself. Now, the Hacienda has a specific building to it, right? And then it has modules, but the modules do not need to be connected to the Hacienda. It just needs to be in the radius. Now, the reason why the radius for this Hacienda is massive is because it really pulls on your island's actual population. I have actually, in my Anno 1800 Expert Campaign series, built entire colonies around a Hacienda building, waiting for the actual population to build up and have the radius actually increase. But if you don't have anything on your island, let's say like over here on Manola, the radius is significantly smaller. So it incentivizes you to actually have a little settlement, or a decent sized settlement rather, actually built before you actually begin. Like over here on Fenris, it is pretty large, but it is definitely the largest over here on Andres. If you would like to see the exact tile spacing, all that good stuff, you can definitely go check that out. The numbers for those are on the wiki for the most part. I don't remember them off the top of my head. I'm the type of person that just goes and builds and likes to see the radius expand pretty much. So long as you're building, know that the radius is going to expand. It's not going to become like infinite on size. It will be pretty large. So like right now, this is covering a decent chunk of Andres itself. And you really have a choice if you want to start beautifying this or not. You do also have some cosmetics over here with the Seeds of Change ornaments, which I tend to like. You know, you do have like some gateways over here. Absolutely not. You may not colonize, and it is indeed immoral, but I quite frankly don't care. You have Hacienda walls, colonnades, pools, all that good stuff, but they don't really do anything for you except for boosting a little bit of island attractiveness. The actual meat and potatoes to this one is going to be the main building itself. So what I would like to do is go ahead and plop this thing down kind of in a good location. I think right here is not a bad place to put it. And we're just going to go ahead and plop it down. We can actually spin it around. Let's do it this way. And there's your Hacienda building. Now, here's the coolest thing. You're obviously going to get this pop-up and whatnot. That's your choice if you want to just read through that. It's really not a bunch of information you need to know, but it is there regardless. One thing that the Hacienda does provide, which is fantastic, right, is a policy. The policies are based off of your island attractiveness, okay? And right now, the island attractiveness for Andres over here is 244. So we are kind of close to getting like the standard weights and measures, which is fine. But let's go through each one of these. You have the Dietary Education Initiative, which reduces consumption for all these particular goods. So we are, in this particular instance, fried plantains and tortillas minus 30% is going to be very, very good for us, right? Specialized lumberjack training obviously deals a lot with the lumberjack sawmills, orchards, and all that good stuff, pretty much increasing their effectiveness, decreasing their maintenance costs. It's not one that I normally pick. Standard weights and measures, this one's if you're having like a very, very large island. Let's say if you actually do have this behemoth in the back later on and you decide to actually have this, then this is fantastic to have to increase your depot storage space. Local assemblies pretty much means that any single one of your quarters that you build for the Hacienda And I remember way back, Taka was actually cheesing the heck out of this, which he had an entire island that was just based around a hacienda, providing him with a whole bunch of influence. +5 influence per household is really powerful. So you can actually, again, go ahead and colonize, like, let's say, an island like this, and just build an entire settlement of, hacienda related items, and you will have a whole bunch of influence for the entire game. The last one is the unloading permits, and that is basically for everybody that's coming into the port. They actually have a faster unload, load speeds, and all that good stuff. So for the time being, we're going to go with the Dietary Education Initiative. And this doesn't really require anything to be active. Like, you don't have to put influence into it. You don't have to do anything out of the ordinary for this to happen. And nor does your actual settlement have to be within total radius of your hacienda for it to actually take effect. So, like, this building is the farthest one from the hacienda, but you can tell that it's working because they've actually changed color, and that's really good. So they're this turquoise type color. You'll know it if you also go over here and check to see, like, this guy, for example, is consuming 30% less plantains. That will help us significantly. Means that we don't have to overproduce as much. These guys are consuming less fried plantains and tortillas. Later on with the artistas, they will consume less of the tortillas and less of the jalea. I believe that's the last one that it would actually provide it to. Jalea and ice cream. Okay, yeah, the ice cream as well. Don't ever stop me from having ice cream. I will legitimately become very angry and hangry, and you will not like it. So let's go through the actual modules. There is a bunch here. So you have Hacienda Paving and Hacienda Pathway. There is legit no difference between these two, except for the way they're designed. And the way that they are designed, let's go ahead and get rid of some of the trees over here so you can see. They are very basic. So this is your Hacienda Paving, and then here is your Hacienda Pathway. They both have the same function. They act as a road, literally. But they have to connect to your hacienda building itself. So if you were to get rid of this tile and this tile, it's all going to go away. So make sure you have a little bit of pre-planning with that. I have done a little test to make sure if those things actually are more beneficial to use over the normal dirt roads and paved roads. Let me tell you, there's really not much of a difference. In fact, I would actually say if you decide to have an island that relies a little bit on train tracks and whatnot, definitely go for like the dirt roads and the paved roads, because as an example here, if we want, like, let's say we have this long stretch over here, if we wanted to extend this, it won't actually go through the paving, it goes around it. So it kind of blocks us off from wanting to do this, right? Just as a little example. They are nice if you want to build like a little settlement in there. That's totally fine. We'll utilize it in a second. The other things that it does have are Hacienda Jornalero Quarters and Obrera Quarters. This is where there's also one more. There's the Artista Quarters, and that came with the last DLC being New World Rising. We haven't reached the Artistas quite yet. They are the next citizen tier after the Obreras right over here. That's like the last actual full season that came out with Anno 1800. The problem with these guys, so let's just go for all intents and purposes and put a little bit of Hacienda paving around the Hacienda building itself. And we'll go ahead and build a Hacienda Jornalero Quarter like so. And then we're also going to build one Hacienda Obrera Quarter. Do note that these quarters do have to be within the circular radius of the Hacienda. Otherwise, they legit will not spawn. Let me show you. You can put one over back here. It will say outside Hacienda range, and it will just essentially get demolished as quickly as possible. So let's take a look at these guys, shall we? For the Jornaleros themselves, as you'll notice, they have 55 limit. How they're capable of fitting 55 people within those small homes is beyond me, as opposed to 30 with the regular Jornalero quarters over there that you can build. The thing with these guys, though, is that you can see that they actually require schnapps and hot sauce in order to get fully manned. Additionally, the reason why it says 55 is because they also do have lifestyle needs that when you actually provide these things to them, they will actually get some more Jornaleros in there. So like the mail system, for example, if we provide them with overseas mail, then we'll get 10 more people in here, right? The downside to this, which I honestly, you know, this might be a hot take, but I typically try to stay away, unless I'm beauty building or something, or I'm just really trying to test the waters. I don't build either quarters for the most part, because you cannot upgrade or downgrade these people. You can only build and plop down the building. The only way to get rid of them is you flat out come over here and get rid of the building itself. And they require more items than normal to actually function. So like these guys would require us to have hot sauce and atole plus the sewing machines, along with the other goods that these guys require, of course. But then these guys, but the homes that we just built by default, would only require the sewing machines in order to upgrade. An argument could be made that just because they actually have 105 maximum limit in here, that's okay and that's actually beneficial. I will leave that for you to decide. I quite actually like the look of these quarters. I just don't like the fact that I can't upgrade and downgrade them. Once you plop them down, you have to navigate with them, pretty much. Long story short. Still, very good if you just want to make a whole Hacienda-based city. That is totally fine. The next one is a Hacienda storeroom, which is a land-based storehouse. And again, this has to be within radius, so we can actually put, maybe let's put 2 down over here. Like so. And our island storage capacity is increased by 100 because these guys increase it by 50 tons on the island per. And again, they have to be within range, otherwise they just wouldn't, it will not matter. The next one is the Hacienda Farm. Now, the Hacienda Farm is a very interesting mechanic because you know that you have a certain amount of fertilities over here that you have to navigate around, okay? I'm going to tell you, this is where the Hacienda actually becomes a little bit broken. Why, you ask? Because you're capable of getting every single one of these, every single one of them, right here, regardless of whether you have the fertility or not, okay? So let's say for all intents and purposes, one that we don't have over here, let's say, is, okay, so we have all of those. We don't have caoutchouc over here. Actually, let's, for all intents and purposes, let's go with spices, okay? We definitely do not have spices over here. But if you click this, and you actually can also jump to the crop if you really want to see it. It just essentially gives you a little history behind it, Anno style. But you can also go over here and press begin planting. And now this Hacienda Farm actually over here reflects spices and is ready to actually be worked on. Along with that, you can put tractor barns to this. So we are going to go immediately and put a tractor barn to this guy. And we're going to build the spice fields. Let's actually make it look nice. And boom, they're working. There's no spice fertility here. You are cheesing the heck out of this. You can even do this with caoutchouc. There's literally an island specifically set for caoutchouc, right? Let's see if we can find one. Here we go. So like this island right over here is one that actually does have caoutchouc fertility, right? Let's say you don't even want to colonize that spot. Go over here to your hacienda. Go to the farm right over here. Plop it down. Make it look all nice and pretty. Crop selection. Click caoutchouc right over here, and he's ready to go. He's absolutely ready to go. We don't have enough steel beams over here to actually build the tractor barn because I need to bring some more over, but they are working. This is one way that you can kind of cheese the system. But for all intents and purposes, I'm going to get rid of this for now because I do kind of want to see if I can get some steel beams here from another source, because I would like to discuss with you guys the Hacienda Fertiliser Works that actually is going to need some of this. So, give me like 1 second. Let me go get some lovely steel beams, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, so I brought over some steel beams, and what I essentially want to show you guys, which is a very powerful mechanic that comes from the Hacienda itself, is Fertiliser Works. Now, again, you have to make sure that all these modules pretty much just have to be within this radius. If they're not within the radius, they're just not going to work. The Hacienda Fertilizer also has a radius in of itself and is actually built around farms like these alpaca farms. And based off of how much they produce, they will passively start producing dung. Dung is used to actually produce fertilizer. The fertilizer is then actually put as an additional silo for these farms, making them even more effective, right? So these guys right now are waiting for dung to actually be produced. Because we put them around these alpaca farms, these guys are now going to start producing dung 1 ton every 3 cycles. So what we can do here is we can hasten the process. Like this one actually did produce some dung right over there. We can always go ahead and put down some silos and get these guys to work faster. One thing that I do want to caution you with, like if you decide that you want to actually work with these particular farms, which alpaca farms typically are one of the best, easiest ones to actually work with in order to get a lot of dung very quickly, you might find yourself overcapping on your alpaca wool itself, and then your building will essentially not be processing anything, right? And because it's not processing any more alpaca wool because you've been loaded up with it, you just don't have enough room to produce the dung, which essentially means that this whole process just shuts down. This building is reliant on these buildings working. So what you can do is if you do see that your alpaca wool, for example, if this was actually at around 400 right now, we could go ahead and use our clipper over here to make a passive sale constantly with Isabel in the region, of whom will purchase the alpaca wool regardless. She'll buy anything you give her, pretty much. But she would purchase all of this, and this would allow your citizens to not only make the ponchos, the bombins, what have you, it would also allow them to constantly produce dung. And absolutely not, you're not going to build there. So what we're actually seeing now is some processing time. If we actually go over here to the production, we'll see that we're actually producing enough dung for this one fertilizer works to actually continue working. The actual demand is 2, we're processing at 3, and all it's actually requiring is 2. And the way that the fertilizer works actually works is if you go over here, you'll see that there's a fertilizer silo icon at the top of this screen. So right now they are working at 300%, perfect productivity with the tractors, right? We can make this even better, right? This is 20 seconds. If we go over here, open up a little spot like so, and put down the fertilizer silo, which looks almost exactly to an animal silo, we'll see that it's now connected, but we have to also make sure that we have enough fields. So let's go ahead and expand on this to make sure it's maximum. And let's just see what happens. So right now we're at 200% plus, so total will be at 300%, plus some extra spices every now and then. And now we're just waiting to see this fertilizer silo actually have some fertilizer in it. And they can do one of two things. They will either go to the warehouse to get the fertilizer, or if the actual fertilizer works is close by, they will also head over there to get it, right? So now this one is depositing the fertilizer into the silo, and we're going to see this bad boy work. Now, these guys, very similar to the tractor barns, are very slow, which helps so much with the amount of consumption you're going to need. I say that, it sounds weird, right? The demand for fertilizer, I guess I should probably say that a little bit better. The demand for fertilizer is so low, but the return that you're actually making all this is so high that you could go to your other farms, like over here for our coffee plantations, because later on coffee is going to be something that you're going to have to really capitalize on heavily, and you can upgrade these guys to become even faster. So these guys were at 20 seconds, right? They're at 15 now. And this is without items, okay? This is without a trade union around them. This is without anything else boosting the productivity. This is without us going over here, boosting it by 50%. That brings it up to 13 seconds. We can just bring this down to a flat 0 because we don't need it, and leave it at that. So we're producing a lot of spices right from this little place right there. It's insane. Let's just see how many we're producing per minute. 7 per minute, okay? Now, the last building with the Hacienda that I want to talk about, that I'm a little bit on the, like, it raises an eyebrow for me, is the Hacienda Brewery. And the reason why I say that it raises an eyebrow for me is it actually reduces the attractiveness of your island by 10. I am not certain why that decision was made for this, because if you want my honest opinion, a Hacienda Brewery looks a little bit better than a rum distillery if I even had one over here. Let me see. Oh, it's over back here, isn't it? This is the rum distillery. The building looks cool, don't get me wrong, It's very nice. You don't have any negative attractiveness with this. But this building also looks really nice. I do not know why. It's like built in the same similar fashion, right? So how come this one has negative attractiveness, the other one doesn't? Anyway, bear in mind this thing does actually have negative attractiveness. So if you see it go lower and if you spam it, you'll know who the culprit is. But you have a catalog here very similar to that of the farms, right? You're able to produce rum here, beer, atole, schnapps, and hot sauce. But the cool thing about this is, if you need to know what to exactly put into each one, you can just start cycling through. So the rum recipe is going to be very similar to what we have over there, being just wood and sugarcane. The beer recipe, which you can definitely produce beer in the old world because of, or the new world, excuse me, because of this, requires grain, which we can get from the farms here, and corn. The next one being the atole, again being corn and sugarcane, another simple one to make. And the last one, schnapps. Schnapps is an old world thing. You can now process and get this stuff in the new world with this particular plant. And the hot sauce. So in this instance, we need the hot sauce. And we are going to begin brewing right now. And these guys are going to work. Do note that later on, when we do have electricity over here, we will actually be able to see the speed increase, because 2 minutes for processing time of hot sauce really, really sucks. Okay. And right now, like, the demand for the hot sauce is not too high because we only have the one Obrera building. But later on, do note that if you want to actually rely on something like this, then you're going to actually have to have electricity here, items, all that stuff to boost the speed of these breweries. Especially like with this one. With the hot sauce, it takes forever. But if you decide that you want to go over here and get the atole going, which we can totally do that, we can go over here and just press on this because we already know what it needs. And this processing speed is a minute, right? If you want to keep one building and you don't want to actually go over to the hacienda itself and then plop it back down, let's say we want another one of the hot sauce breweries, you just copy that particular one and then place it down. The same thing will happen with the brewery again for the atole, and the same thing does happen with the farms. So if you have a spice farm down and you want to build another one, but you don't want it to be spices, you want it to be something else, make sure you know about that. You can still do that. You can still plop it down because you can always go ahead and change it. So like if we put another one over here, you can always go to crop selection and change it to whatever the heck you want. So like in this particular situation, I just want to see what, grain be popped up over here. You know what I mean? So we can go ahead and put down the tractor barn. We can also go ahead and put down the fertilizer silo, build all the farm fields. Look at that beautiful gold right there, and you'll just see this thing work so fast. So, the Hacienda Seeds of Change, definitely a DLC that I would recommend that you guys get into. Honestly, just make sure you get these things when they're on sale. That's really the best way of going about the Anno 1800 DLCs, in my opinion. This is a really powerful one. It's game-changing with regards to the new world and what you can do in the new world. So the fertilizer can be sent everywhere. It can be sent to the old world. It can be sent to Cape Trelawney. It can be sent to Mbeza if you get that later on. It can be sent in between your islands in the new world, right? Literally have an island, make a whole bunch of fertilizer, and then spread it everywhere. That just sounds terrible. We're talking about literal fertilizer being spread. I don't even know. This is my commentary. Get used to it if you're new here. But anyway, until next time, my friends, hopefully you found this useful. Let me know if you guys actually get the Seeds of Change DLC and how you best work with it. Is it actually helping you? I would very much appreciate knowing. But until next time, my friends, thank you so much. Please consider like, commenting, subscribing, hit that bell button, sharing it with your friends. As always, I very much appreciate all of your support, and I'll catch you in the next episode, my Rantians.